Despite some recent encouraging statistics, the city as a whole, as well as Ward 1, has an unacceptably high rate of HIV infection. Are current prevention and treatment strategies sufficient? If not, what more needs to be done?
The answer to that is
Mr. Smith first.
Okay.
I think we should start with the population most within the purview and control of the District of Columbia government, and that's with those incarcerated, including federal reports and local reports. We've seen a poor oversight and execution and administration of testing and early identification of people within the custody of DC jails and people who've been arrested and are maintained locally. They've been returning back in the communities at very high numbers infected with HIV-AIDS and infecting that further into the community.
Mr. Weaver?
Yeah, I think that there's a recent studies have shown there's a massive change in the demographics of who's suffering from HIV. And you start to see more people of color. I believe that African American men now make up 51% of the new HIV cases. And we also see a growing heterosexual group that are reaching out into HIV. The group that first came active around AIDS and HIV issues in this country put a campaign on that went into every bookstore, went into every theater, went into every bar or restaurant where homosexual men were meeting. And I think that type of aggressive campaign has to happen the same way that South Africa is trying to take it on. You make it a publicity campaign, you put it into every school, you offend many, but you put the word out everywhere possible, because the changing demographic now really puts it into people that were not alive in the 80s and who never seen that same education that other people had met. So that's what I think the city needs to do, is focus a public relations campaign that reaches into every part of those new demographics.
Thank you. Mr. Graham?
Well, I think in HIV about the last thing we need is another public relations campaign, and speaking as somebody who spent the first 15 years of the AIDS epidemic working with others to assemble a meaningful response to prevention and care of people living with AIDS, the issue that we have today requires a much more definite response than that. Let me just say, though, there's nobody on the council who's had a better record, a stronger record for tenant rights than I have. Against advice to the contrary, I strengthened rent control. I saved the tenant an opportunity to purchase. On Vernon Street, I launched an investigation, subpoenaed the owners of that building before the council, and grilled them on what was going on. We called attention to that in ways that were truly effective. It wasn't just a question of sitting back at some ANC meeting, passing a resolution. We took real action on behalf of tenants and on behalf of tenant rights, and it has made a real difference, and is part of my record I'm especially proud of.
Thank you.